So here we are, day one of the I Take That Personal podcast, where we're going to talk about the personal nature of business, sales, real estate, mortgage, life, and frankly, how, well, fuck, I take that personal. So our first guest today is Mr. Nat Ferguson. I am honored to have you here as our first guest.
Thank you.
And we have known each other now for, gosh, what has it been, 6-7 years?
Yeah.
And we've had a personal and professional working relationship together. And, speaking of kind of personal and some of the changes there, your business is in Seal Beach, local community, Seal Beach in California here, local community. Mm-hmm. And you had previously, up until recently, the name of your business was your name, Ferguson Realty. Yeah. And recently you made a change to Splash Realty, which along with that came a lot of behind the scenes improvements for both your clients, along with your employees and your business partners. So let's just dive right in, man. Tell me a little bit about that change, why you made it, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So the business had been, Ferguson Realty since 2013. And I think that, along the lines of, taking something personally, as far as a small company can go, as far as a brand built around a personal name can go, it has limitations in so many different ways. And, if we're talking about a small business, not the name, but operationally speaking, it's challenging to grow a small business when you're trying to get access to vendors and get access to help and access to talent and all the things it takes to grow a small business. So the summer of 2022, we kind of went back to the drawing board behind the scenes. We knew we wanted to make a change to take the business to its next iteration. And part of that was changing the name of the business. And talk about personal. It's like, the way I describe it to people is like, imagine for a moment that somebody suggests to you that you rename your child or you rename your pet. It has it's very counterintuitive, it seems, to take something that you've grown, you've created, that you've put a large portion of your life and your efforts into, and then changing the name.
Especially when the name's your name. Hey, your name's not good anymore, bro.
And people say, why would you do that? Why would you change your name? Do you not like your name? Do you have a bad reputation? All those things that people ask, why would you do that? So, but from the outside looking in, yes, there was a name change, and the name change was a business strategy. And then internally, it was about having the opportunity to bring more resources to a small company. And that's everything from operations and marketing and legal support and broker support, all the things that aren't sexy and people really just don't want to talk about. Like, those were the things that were happening inside of the business that we were hoping to, and eventually, and we did, improve and relaunch. And then as part of the process, you have to consider changing the name of your business. I mean, let's be honest for a moment. I mean, anybody watching that has experienced some marketing in their business or at a company they work for understands that there's limitations on what you can do with creativity and marketing when it revolves around your last name. Okay, so is your last name an adjective? No, it's a last name. But when you're creating a brand and a theme and a logo and marketing, you can be a lot more creative with what you do if that's designed around an adjective.
Yeah, well, Splash Realty has absolutely done that. I mean, being at your launch party, right? Being at everything that led up to the launch, you were able to create a real great buzz around that, using that word splash creatively and frankly making a splash in the marketplace, right? Yeah. Making a splash in the community. So I know you talked a little bit about kind of some of the structural changes and some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes into it. If I'm a consumer and you're my realtor, your office is my realtor, what were some of the changes that they're going to see, or why? How does it benefit the consumer as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a matter of getting resources. So whether that's better marketing for somebody who's seeking to sell their home, more marketing reach for somebody who's trying to maybe sell a home that appeals to a certain demographic or a certain area that could even be consumers outside of the United States. Like bringing those resources together was part of this change, right? So we want to make sure we're best serving people who are trying to market something that needs a unique approach.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned, but we're going to get into a little bit also about you personally a little bit later on, right? So what do I mean by that? We're going to do a little this or that, right? So a little bit for the audience as well. We're going to, you don't know what those questions are. We're going to kind of see how that evaluates, right?
All right.
Maybe we'll tease it a little bit sooner. But outside of that, coming back full circle here. So, you had mentioned more resources as well for consumers. So, one of the things, I've never sold a home. Right. Okay. I've never gone into a house and told, I'm on the mortgage side, right? But I've never sold a home. I've never gone into a house and told somebody, hey, here's how much your home should be worth, right? Or here's how, what I think we should do to your property in order to best maximize it. So tell me a little bit about how kind of consumers react to that, a little bit about kind of that personal nature of being able to tell someone the good or the bad in that regards.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we're, if you're talking about somebody who's thinking about selling their home and they want to know, typically the first question is, what is my home worth? Right. And so the process that you go through to explain that can oftentimes lead to a conclusion that, depending on the market, could be more favorable. Also, depending on the market, could be less favorable. I think that when I approach how to present that information, I like to think about when I go to the doctor.
Okay.
Nobody necessarily wants to go to the doctor, but you go to the doctor because either A, you're getting a physical, or B, you need some professional advice on something that's happening, right? You just want somebody to be honest with you. That's what you're looking for. So to answer your question, nobody wants to go to the doctor with a problem and the doctor goes, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine, right? I know that I've ever met a doctor that consults their patients like that.
Sure.
So being a person that is being trusted to make an important decision on what is my home worth, you should be very straightforward and honest with the person that is considering the sale of their home. Give them all the information, right? Diagnose it like a doctor would diagnose it and let them make a decision on if that's something that they now want to do. Do they want to, put their home for sale for this price? Or do they not? Maybe it doesn't make sense. But you'd never go in there and overpromise and then under-deliver, right? Is that something an attorney would do? Absolutely not. Is that something your doctor would do? Absolutely not. So when we're approaching those conversations, I just think of a holistic approach, like other people, other professionals we rely on in our life to be honest with us, regardless of the outcome, right? So that's the way I approach it.
So one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later on was that you shared with us, and probably after our break, you shared with us an interesting story that I want to share with the audience. So we'll get that. I'll get that a little bit later on. But being the broker owner of a local team in we'll call it Southern California, Seal Beach, one of the things that you're always doing is recruiting, managing, teaching, training not only your support staff but additional realtors that work with you and your team. So. If I'm, an industry professional, either I'm new in the business or I'm looking to join the business, what are some of the things or what are some of the advice that you'd give to, industry professionals overall?
Create relationships, right? I think it doesn't matter if we're talking about you're new to the business and you're like, how do I get business? Or I'm new to the business and I want to get to transact with an agent and have them know who I am and accept an offer I'm writing or think of me favorably. You need to create relationships, right? The foundation of this business is interpersonal relationships. So get involved with your local broker preview, right? Network with the other agents in the area. Don't just, try to stay within the tribe of your office because this business requires to work across the aisle with agents from all offices, all ages, all demographics, all areas. You're going to have more success in the business when people know, like, and trust you, right? Also true with our potential customers. If they know, like, and trust you, you're already setting yourself up with a great foundation because then people will want, people want to work with people they know, like, and trust, right? So give yourself a leg up if you're brand new. Get involved with a broker or a team that, works in your geographic area, and then get involved with your broker tours, your broker previews, your broker caravans, however you name it or call it. Get involved, show up, shake hands, introduce yourself, right? You're going to get a lot further down the road when people know who you are. If you're just a guy behind a computer screen with a real estate license, or a guy behind a phone, or a woman behind a phone with a real estate license, you're not going to get a shot. You're just not, right? There's a lot of people that do what we do. There's a lot of people that have been that are in this business, and more every year that get their license. What makes you different, right? The relationships do.
Very good, very good. So we are going to take a quick break here and do a read from our sponsor. So we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to us by J&J Coastal Lending. J&J is an independent mortgage broker with a network of over 70 different investors offering hundreds of loan programs. Whether your personal loan needs are simple or complicated, if you need a $200,000 loan or a $2 million loan, J&J will find the best loan program and rate. FHA, VA, conventional, jumbo, or a first-time homebuyer in need of down payment assistance. Regular income docs or outside the box, no documentation loan options. J&J has a solution to meet your unique needs. Visit www.thinkjnj.com for a no-cost, no-commitment evaluation. And when you're there, mention this podcast and J&J will give you $1,000 in lender credits on your next home loan. All right, so we're back here, and I want to continue the conversation we were just having where you were giving advice and speaking to industry professionals, right? And a lot of the tonality around that was, hey, some of the things that you should positively do, right? Create relationships, network, build those personal connections, because those deeply impact what can lead to success, right?
Definitely.
Separating yourself. So is there anything that you would suggest that somebody shouldn't do, whether they be new or seasoned in the business?
Yes. So what you shouldn't do is you should never, ever sacrifice your reputation for business or the perception of business. In other words, mind your ethics in this business. Like the number one way to destroy your career is to trade ethics for anything. Anybody that's watching this that has any experience in the real estate mortgage business understands how small it is. And your reputation is what people say when you're not around. So if you're poaching clients, right? And people do that in this business. It's something that nobody talks about, right? So I'm just going to keep it real. You poach clients in this business, you're done. If you poach agents in this business, you are done. And it's sometimes as dangerous as the optics you can create around behaviors in your business. It may not necessarily be something you say. It may not be necessarily be something that you posted on the internet. But if the optics around the way that you conduct yourself as an agent, as a team leader, or as a broker appear to be unethical, your business is done.
Yeah.
Because people never forget that, right? It's about creating those memories, those relationships with clients, yes, but also with the other people in this business. And I haven't yet met an agent who only wanted to get into the business for 1 year or 5 years. Most of the people that are looking at this industry say, this is a place I'm going to spend my entire career. So if your goal is to build a career on trust and an ethical business practice, don't do anything at any time that could jeopardize your what am I thinking of? Your
reputation.
Your reputation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring that up because I could just make a little comparison or analogy back to, and I don't want to get overly technical in the mortgage business or stuff along those lines, but in general in the mortgage business, if you provide a client with a loan, and most of those loans don't have any prepayment penalties, and that client pays off their loan 6 months or less, there's a recapture that the originator has to pay. So basically, whoever the loan officer is and whoever the company is gets penalized massively. They basically give back all their commissions plus some, right? So a lot of times, especially when we get into 2000, and 2001, clients were refinancing multiple times. So I'd get a call from a client sometimes and they would say, hey, listen, I want to refinance. I was introduced to you from so on and so forth. And, we would look at their file and we would notice that they refinanced 2, 3, 4 months ago. And I had a real integrity kind of conversation with some of the people around me, because my initial ethics, my initial intuition says, well, fuck, I don't want this person, this other loan officer I never met, to get crushed and penalized by me doing this refinance, even though that's money I can earn and that's money that I'm going to use for my family, right? Yeah. And that's business I'm going to generate and keep the lights on. I had a real integrity problem with that. So I would say back to that client, hey, tell me, what was your experience like with your previous lender? Did they do a good job, right? Were you happy with them? Did they treat you well? And if they say, yeah, they were good, like they did a good job, I would say, cool, do me a favor. Like, they're going to get penalized pretty heavily if we complete this refinance right now, but rates are better, so you need to take advantage of it. Give them a call, evaluate their rates. If they gave you a great experience and they can do a similar job to what I do, just complete the transaction with them. Now, if they didn't do a good job for you, you don't like them, they did a bad experience, or we're significantly better, then sure, I'll do the business, right? Mm-hmm. And I even asked 2 or 3 people in the mortgage business that I work with, as well as my wife and a couple of people, and everyone's like, you're crazy. Just do the damn deals, right? Make the money, like serve the client. And I'm like, it just doesn't pass the smell test for me. Like, I don't like that. So I want to at least have that conversation. So that was what you were just referencing about integrity and like how you want to operate. Now, I have nothing bad to say about anybody who operates differently. That's their choice, sure, right? But my moral compass said, I got to give them the opportunity to, go back to that previous lender and not have that lender get crushed. So it's interesting from that perspective. So, we really didn't even get into it. I just mentioned at the top that you and I have known each other now for, 6, 7, 8 years, yep, and worked together closely. So I think that how we met and the nature around that relationship being developed flows very good with the theme of our podcast. So why don't you, say from your perspective, because I know the story I tell myself about how we met, right? I don't know if they match up or not. So why don't you share with me your version of how you and I connected and started working together?
Yeah, I believe it was 2017, or maybe it was 2016.
When was Kobe's last year?
I don't remember, man.
Someone will put it in the comments here.
So is that your point of reference?
That's my point. I remember exactly where I was having a conversation physically. That was kind of like one of the tipping points. So continue.
You were at a game.
I was at Kobe's last game.
Okay.
So I was at Kobe's last game, stepped outside before the game started, and we had, a good conversation that I think was one of the, impetuses to us developing a deeper relationship. So go ahead, continue.
Yes, that's funny. Yeah, I had a condo for sale right over here in Sunset Beach. And I was representing the seller, and a realtor came along with a buyer. They wrote an offer, the usual process. And then I get a phone call from you, and you introduced yourself, and you said, my name's John, blah, blah, blah. The borrower is qualified, all, typical conversation, nothing out of the norm. And you said, I'm going to be calling you with an update every Tuesday. Every Tuesday. Now, that's where I was like, that's different. And let's see if he keeps that up. And so every Tuesday you checked in. I didn't have to call you. You're oh my God, John's calling. And then I got an update, which made it fantastic for me, because guess who else needs an update? The person selling the condo wants to know, how's it going with the buyer, right? So it made my life easier, made my job easier. And then we got to right about the end of it, and shit hit the fan. And like it does sometimes at the 11th hour. And I was like, I think this deal is dead. It was some insurance issue. It
had to do with the condo complex.
The HOA complex didn't have their own insurance writer or whatever. I don't even know. I'd never even heard of it before, to be honest, because it was a 2-unit condo.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a big giant 50-unit condo.
I think it was 4.
Or whatever.
It was 4 units. Small 4 units, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I was like, and also that was going to kill the loan. That's how it all played out, right? Whoever was underwriting it, or the bank was like, we found this, it doesn't have this, we can't do the loan, so this deal is done. And I was like, you feel a little helpless in the moment, because in the position that I was in as the agent helping the seller, it's out of my hands. Nothing I can do. And I was like, well, this is done, and you're like, hang on a second, let me make some phone calls. And I was like, whatever, like this, I appreciate that John is going to make some phone calls, but also this deal is going to die. And you call back and I was, that was when you stepped out of the game at that moment. You're like, hey, actually I got a resolution on it. Whatever the resolution was, we're good to go. The deal's going to close. And I was like, dude, that was the interview. I want to sit down and get to know more about you and learn how we can work together.
Yeah, we had like 2 or 3 different solutions that ultimately we ended up pulling together. And so from that perspective, right, obviously we're having the conversations and we're discussing those solutions. But then, from there, gosh, we hooked up, we connected one-on-one. Then it was like a slow bleed where like I was a little like, infection you couldn't get rid of. I kept kind of picking at you until we finally got to a spot to where we developed that relationship, and then ultimately it's been I've been honored to be part of your team now for since whatever Kobe's last game was. Right? Since wherever Kobe's
Google
last
that.
game
When was Kobe's last game?
So all right, cool deal. So one of the things that I wanted to touch base on a little bit was that you had shared earlier kind of like a success story or a story that you wanted to kind of we wanted to talk a little bit more about, which really came into the personal nature of creating your own brokerage, right? So what was the impetus or when was the defining moment that helped you realize like, and there's nothing wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with being an agent. There are super successful agents
100%.
that make more money than you and I do, right? So, but just like I've gone down the path of entrepreneurship and owning my own business in the mortgage space, I could tell you the defining moments around when that was, right? What was the defining moments for you around deciding to start Splash?
Well, that actually goes all the way back to about 2006. And in 2006, I was looking to pivot as an agent to work for a local independent office, right? It's the local independent office in Seal Beach. He was kind of the guy that had all the listings. He was the specialist in the area. I'd only been licensed about 4 years. And there was already rumblings that, things were going to change in, the market and things like that in 2006. But I figured this guy always has 6 or 8 listings. He can't possibly sit at all of those open house. So that was kind of the reason I went to work for him. But I knew that I wanted to evolve from being a solo agent to having a brokerage because it's something I enjoy. I enjoy working and coaching and training agents in the business. And so I was already kind of looking down the road, and I thought, well, you know what? Like, I'm going to start here and I'll ask him because he's kind of, maybe towards the end of his career and just kind of test the waters and see if he would consider selling his brokerage to me. And I asked him point blank. I was like, hey, at some point you're probably going to want to retire and, travel or whatever the case may be. I do want to have my own brokerage. Would you entertain selling your brokerage to me? And it might have been his answer that nudged me in the direction that I was going to end up going anyways. But he kind of leaned back and said, I'll fucking die in this chair. And I was like, so that's a no, So anyways, so it was a no. And he's still working there. And I got my broker's license in 2013, and I started off as Ferguson Realty. I was just one guy, trying to figure out how to make it all work. And of course, you try something and it fails, and you try and it fails because it's like they don't actually have a school that teaches you how to be a broker. You can go to school to get a broker's license. And
that's about the extent of it,
right? But you better be prepared to eat shit more times than you. And I'm not even going to tell you how many times, a lot of times, and always get back up. And if you don't want to do that, and I don't blame people because it is a lot of work. Most people are like, you're nuts for doing that, right? But it's my passion. So you follow your passion and you learn, and then you grow and you learn and you grow, right, through that process. But I'm not going to name names and things like that. But like it's interesting to see those moments in time that nudged you down a certain path. And I tell that story over and over again, like just kind of leaning back in his chair. I wish this chair reclined so I can show you kind of I'll fucking die in this chair. I just love that, like, part of the story. And I actually laughed. My feelings weren't hurt at all. Sure. I was like, this dude loves what he does. Good for him. You know what I mean? What does he know that I don't know?
And now are you telling people that? No, I'm kidding. Now you're out there and you're saying the same thing. But, on my side, just to kind of share high level, As you know, I've worn a lot of different hats in a lot of different positions. And, going back, God knows how long, I always had, the want to have my own business and the want to be able to create, right? And do things differently. And from that perspective, I'm still full of piss and vinegar, right? I still want to create and set the world on fire. And I think that in the mortgage space, as I've worked in different positions here, there's two things that I've recognized or I've noticed. One, that most of the entities, from the top down, management, wherever you want to call it, and I've had a lot of high level management positions, they're too worried about today and they're short-sighted on the long term. They're too worried about this month, this quarter, this to hit their numbers, and they're not focused on the long-term building. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I know that I can best serve my clients in the space that I work in today, because I believe deeply, and we talk about this as a team, that if we say no, we can't help this client, nobody else should ever say yes. Because being in this model and being who we are, we have the ability to have access to every product or program that's in the market. So if we're saying no, nobody else should ever say yes, because we just didn't do a good enough job finding the answer, right? And then obviously we have the ability to create and build a brand that hopefully one day is just, $1 billion brand. We'll see if we ever get there.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're getting up here on our time, and we did promise earlier. I know you guys have been waiting with bated breath, but we're doing a little this or that, right? So I took a couple little questions, a couple little things where we can help to learn that a little bit better personally, right? So the first one I'm going to start with, and I think I know the answer to this one pretty easily, but first one we're going to go this or that: wine or beer?
Beer.
Dan, you took longer than I thought. I thought beer was coming out right away.
I was like, is there any wines I dislike before I default to my
All
beer?
right.
But
So beer. Favorite beer?
Anything Ballast Point.
All right. Yeah, we've had one
I'm
or two.
kind of partial because it's like,
local,
literally a few steps from the house.
All right. Pizza or tacos?
Tacos all the time.
Fuck that
Every day,
shit.
any day that ends in Y.
Hell
Breakfast,
no.
lunch,
Hell
or
no.
dinner.
Dude, I am pizza.
Hey,
all day.
It wasn't your question.
I get it. I'm answering it now. It's my podcast. I'm getting pizza every day, all day.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you are.
Every day, all day, and sometimes more than once a day.
Yep.
That's just what it is.
If they could just create a pizza with the taco ingredients on top, we would both be winning.
That's it. All right. So professionally, door knocking or mailers?
Personally, I would say mailers.
Okay.
I don't want to say that's the advice I give agents, because the answer is do what works for you. I don't like people knocking on my door at home. I'm not a door knocker. I don't like people cold calling me. I'm not a cold caller.
Yeah.
Right? If you like that, then do that. If you don't like that, don't do that. You won't be successful at things that you don't like being done to you.
We should cut that into an earlier part of the episode where we're talking about the industry advice, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's very. We're not going to cut it in, but in any event, we're talking about it now. Yep. But I think the industry advice. Listen, people are successful doing things lots of different ways.
100%.
Cold calling, mailers, door knocking, networking, buying leads.
Yep.
Pick something, right?
Yep.
But you got to fit something that fits you. Find something that fits you.
Pick something that you can lean into, and when you do it, it brings you joy.
All right. So snow or beach?
Oh God, beach.
All right.
I'm offended you even asked me to snow. My wife is the other way around, which is of course like the dichotomy of the relationship.
Yeah.
I just can't wait for the beach.
All right. Giants or Cowboys?
Bro. What a setup right there. Giants fan right here asking me, Giants or Cowboys.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, we got some good playoffs coming up here.
We do. Yes,
Cowboys,
I know.
Cowboys.
I know you're Cowboys. You've been to the stadium once or twice.
I was indoctrinated by my wife, so I really don't have a choice. So
All right. Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Okay.
You want to know why?
Sure, please tell me.
Too much noise on Facebook.
Too much noise on Facebook.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just want to see a visual representation of what I'm interested in. I don't want to hear like lengthy posts and people arguing and all the new replies back and forth. Like Facebook is noisy.
All right.
Man.
So this will be on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch it just on Instagram.
Perfect. I will.
All right, man. Listen, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you being out here, and thank you for being my first guest.
Yes. All right, man.
Thanks. Oh, and thanks to our sponsor.